How's your day going?
So far, so good. Thank you.
Good. You know, we spoke in 2011. It was
Wow.
during the time you were on Southland.
That's going back a minute.
Yeah, it surely is. Well,
It's
let's.
good to see you again, man. I'm glad we got to wrap around.
Well, me too. You must be busy on. What are you doing? Touring and doing
Yeah, we
rehearsals.
just wrapped up a new series for Netflix, and I'm on I'm doing the Christmas tour right now, battling some weather this week, trying to figure out what we're doing, and just got my hands full, but loving life.
Yeah, we're in Birmingham. We got some teens coming up Thursday night and Friday night, so it's going to be pretty cold. Maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be cold starting tomorrow around here.
Yeah, here too. Well, I'm loving the music. Do we call it Southern rock? What do you
You
call
know what?
it?
I'm a sort of stumped as anyone. I don't really know yet. I mean, I've been called Americana, I've been called country, I've been called Southern rock, I've been called mountain music, I've been called Texas thunder music, I've been called a lot of things. But when I started out, I guess, um, my album comes out February 3rd, and uh, we've got I've got a lullaby on there called Ponygirl. I don't know if you've had time to hear that. And
Yeah.
I've got a couple of other songs that are not that don't quite have as much punch from uh a sound, the sound of it, but it carries a lot of weight, I think, story wise. And that's what I love about this genre of music. Just I was able to go from a 2 hour platform telling stories to a 2 minute platform. And once I started to understand um, how one could really find an authentic way to tell a story in that format, I fell in love with it. I just really did. I come from a rural background anyway. My father rode bulls professionally for 10 years. And 1979, 1980, 1981, I was California State Junior All-Around Champion in the, Junior Rodeo Association out there. And I was planning on being a cowboy, and that's what I wanted to do. And my father became a stuntman, and that's how all stunt men happened back in the day. I mean, they're all the Westerns, and when you needed a stunt done, you got a cowboy to jump onto the horses or do the barroom brawl or whatever they did. And my dad um, spent a lifetime doing stunts, and he still coordinates today. And he was the reason why I got into the business as an actor. But I was raised as a cowboy by cowboys, and we still have a ranch and horses. And you know although I wasn't really raised in a musical home, um, there were a lot of stories told, and there are a lot of stories shared on ranches and around the campfire. And it used to be a very valued time in one's life when you'd crawl out of the cave and sit around the campfire and listen to your elders tell you stories. I mean, they were the device. They were your iPhone and your television. So you really worshipped those moments that are now lost because we have every answer on the planet in our front pocket now, which gives us this fake sense of wisdom and experience and entitlement that I think challenges character today.
Mhm.
And so we're going through a different time right now. And we're going through a time when we used to be able to make mistakes and grow and learn from them and rise from the ashes and become better people from that too. Well, if you make a mistake now, you're canceled and you're off the team. So
Yeah.
that creates a sense of anxiety in all these youngsters who are afraid to make a mistake, who aren't allowed to make mistakes. So you have um, a lot of what I would call timid people, creatively, emotionally, just just not wanting to expose themselves because they don't want to be caught in doing
Criticized.
anything wrong. And so, country music, I think, gives me a platform to reach out to people that I have similar values to. We're in a real interesting crossroads right now where people who want to hold on to their old values are being challenged, and people who want to express new values are being challenged. And really, we just need to live and let live, because just like the evolution of everything, the old dies off and the new blossoms. You know what I mean? So it's like there's no reason for me to make you to feel like I do, or force your experiences or desires upon mine. And the thing that I've learned through country music is it's given me the opportunity to perform as myself, as Tommy Howell. And that's not something I've done before. I've played a lot of roles. I've played, I've hidden behind makeup and characters and wardrobe and lenses and all kinds of things. And of course, there's a piece of me in all of that. But when you're up there with your guitar, you're up there with a microphone, and you're looking at an audience, and you open up and you share a piece of your heart, there's nothing to protect you anymore. There's not an out that says written by someone else. There's not an out that says produced by, directed by someone else. It's you. It's written, directed, and produced, and starring you. And if you like it, it's my fault. If you don't, it's my fault. And even though I've only been doing this for a short time musically, well, I've had a lot of experience, 40 years, that I feel that have trained me to a certain degree to get here. I have something to offer you. I caught the last bit of the golden age of Hollywood, meaning I worked with Elizabeth Taylor. I worked with Anne Margaret. I worked with the greats like Dennis Hopper and Harry Dean Stanton, and these people, that all, Roddy McDowell, Malcolm McDowell, these people that experienced Hollywood when it was special. What do I mean by that? Well, there weren't movies made for $5 on iPhones back then. They were all red carpet events, and they were all multi-million dollar extravaganzas. And it was a big deal to be a part of that at the time. That was our royalty, Elizabeth Taylor, and that beautiful time that we got to experience before, it just, TikTok was invented, and whoever had the funniest video became the big star. It's just a different world now. So being able to sit down and have experienced those moments with people like that and share them with people that have interest in that, which there's still a large group of audiences that appreciate a good story. Most people just want to go to a show and hear great music, and that's great, because I understand that. But some people, like when I go see some of my favorite artists, I really appreciate listening to what they have to say at times and what they've gone through. And, I think about it and I respect it. And there are a lot of young people that still look up to me from the role of Ponyboy and The Outsiders. And I get a lot of letters and a lot of messages from kids that are struggling today on levels that I didn't recognize when I was a child. We didn't have all the heartache and the headache and the pain and the struggle and the labels that they all have now. There was a simpler time back then too. And country music lends to that simpler time that I appreciate and want to maintain in my life a little bit if I can.
Yeah, you were talking about back then and everything, and you also had the distinction of being a part of what they called back then the Brat Pack.
Well, yeah, a bit. I was a little young, but I was kind of in there.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, that was a
I think it was the beginning maybe of it, the
Yeah,
form.
and that's funny because when you bring that up, it's sort of like, well, I guess I was a part of what people would have deemed as the entitled group then, which is funny because now I'm looking at it down my nose now, right? That's hilarious about life. It's all big circle, isn't it? That's why
It
we can't even sit back and judge because the wheel of growth just goes to show when you're young, you should be marching in the streets and demonstrating
is.
and when you get a little bit older, you should be a little bit more conservative.
But
And that's
that was special back then. That was special
Yeah.
to be
It,
in
it
that group of upcoming actors. I don't
well,
know.
it was definitely new. There hadn't
Yeah.
been a lot of, and I'm not saying the outsiders started anything, but it was at the forefront of those
Mhm.
young teen films that became a big part of a lot of people's lives.
Abs-
Whether it was a John Hughes movie or Stand by Me by um which is a great film in its own right. There were films, these coming of age movies that really kind of helped us grow because that's what we
Yeah.
looked at and had. It was a
Yeah.
special thing to go to the movies and watch something and you talk about it and think about it. But
And probably still the reason why you're getting so many letters.
yeah, I got to tell you though, the kids today, uh, I get letters from these kids who say, I didn't think I liked country music. Is that country music what you're playing? I like that. I get that, and I also get thank you for letting me feel comfortable by sharing that I live on a ranch and I ride horses and I like country music because I've never felt like I could do that. Because let's face it, it's not cool. The kids at school, they don't want to say, yeah, man, I'm country when everybody's listening to
Yeah. Rap.
whatever is hip at the moment.
Mhm.
It's definitely will put you in your shell. And I did that. I have so many people that say to me, wait a minute, why do I hear a little bit of an accent or what's going on with you? I said, well, look, you know, my life changed when I became comfortable with not hiding that I come from a rural environment or that my family's are cowboys or whatever the stereotypes that come with that I didn't feel comfortable with as a young person, to the point to where I changed the way I spoke. I changed, what I said and did and how I did it. And I didn't tell people or who I was or how I lived. But again, part of country music and this platform appreciates that a lot. And we are able to connect on it. And so on stage, the more personal I can become, the more universal the moment is for all of us, and we all connect to it on a level. Because what I've experienced is that as a human, we all experience the same ups and downs through life, and it's those moments of agony and defeat that really forge our characters. And as a young person, you don't have that yet. You haven't lost anybody. You haven't lost in love or a loved one. And when you go through those moments, when you go through those heartaches and pains and you come out the other side of it, and you manage to feel compassion and you manage to grow as a person and have understanding and want to help others because of that, there's nothing better as far as I'm concerned than that moment. That's truth. That's when we get real. It's sad that we got to go through what might be deemed a tragedy to learn this, but in disguise, it's the greatest thing ever because it sets you on a different course that changes lives. And uh, music has given me that opportunity, and I didn't have that, and I I felt hollow to some degree. I always gravitated towards musicians, and I always wanted to do it, but I never let myself do it because I never felt like I was A, good enough, or B, really clear on what I wanted to do until I became clear on who I really was at my core
Yeah.
and stopped wanting to hide that. And, I spent a lifetime exploring other characters, and I finally started exploring myself. And that's when I became a better artist. And that's when I allowed myself to not live in the land of fear. Because let's face it, nobody wants to hear you've only been doing music 2 years. If you're putting an album out and you're up on stage, apologies don't work. An apology might be able to work on your social media live session. You say, sorry, I've only been doing this for a few weeks, but God bless, let's have a good time. Do you have any questions? But when you're messing around with the big dogs, they don't care. There's no apologies allowed. And you better show up and know what you're doing. And I love setting the bar high for myself, and I love rising to the occasion. There's something to be said about that. And I did that a lot as a child in the rodeo arena. And I was able to transfer that into casting offices, and then worked for a lot of pretty good directors at a young age. So my self-confidence wasn't lacking in terms of setting a bar high and trying to achieve that goal as opposed to failing or giving up. That's something that wasn't allowed at my house when I was raised. So I still carry that with me. And music was something that I was afraid of. And performing in front of people, it takes a lot of time and a lot of training, and nobody would ever be so stupid as to do what I'm doing. But it's been the greatest thing ever, to be honest. It really has made me a better actor, and it's made me a better performer all around.
I really like Whiskey Demon. I-
Thank you.
is there some of your life in that?
You
Or
know what? I come from uh, a family of addicts. My grandparents were all drinkers. My daddy was an alcoholic. He quit, 40 years ago. I've been sober for 40 years. I like to swill one back and have a good time. I've never got lost in anything to the point to where um it affected anybody's lives, or it was a bad thing. I mean, I like to have a good time like the next guy. And trust me, I've got cowboy jeans in me. So um, I'm not an everyday drinker, but if we have something planned and we want to go out and have one, oh man, I will tie it on with you and we have a damn good time. But I've never gotten to the point to where I was an angry drinker, or I wanted to fight somebody, or it was something that I would swing by and grab my daily 6-pack or something like that. I don't like beer. I don't drink beer. I don't even like wine. I don't have a wine collection. um, Whiskey Demon's an interesting song because uh, it started out something completely different. And then it almost became sort of this fun exercise in trying to find a way to bury these, brand name titles into the song without it really overwhelming the story or becoming a nuisance. And I found that to be fun.
Mm.
And then there was an element that I discovered. There's sort of a dual element in the song that if you don't really examine the song and you just like how it sounds and want to sing some bits, it's a real great barroom
It is.
brawl of a song.
Mhm.
But if you really break it down and look into it, it's a sad song.
It
You
is.
know, it's about a guy that clearly has a drinking problem. His best friends are bottles, and he buries his troubles in them, and he says that they're always there for me. And I'd rather go to a hole in the wall and drink than deal with life. And that's something. There's something really heartbreaking about that, because I think whether it's the opiate epidemic, whether it's um, alcohol, wherever we are during that time of society that is uh, serving the people what they want in that moment, it reflects all of that. You know, it reflects, you know, cocaine in the 70s and 80s and crack in the 90s and alcohol in the 50s and the 60s and marijuana today and all of these things that I think um, really reflect who we are as a society, because we do try to bury any sense of feeling, whether it's pain
Mm,
or the opposite. You know, we bury our pain and sorrows with alcohol, and we celebrate our
yeah.
achievements with alcohol. So it's a funny thing. There are there are different ways to look at that song, and I can look at them from both ways and have experienced all of it.
Mm,
And you know, I've had problems. I've faced them, and I've had other people in my family have problems and faced them. And I'll tell you one thing, you know, drugs and alcohol have never fixed anything for anybody in my family. And watched a lot of people, cousins and uncles, and a lot of people battle.
mm,
And it's a really good reminder when you see that up close. You know, because I was a child with some examples of what not to do, as opposed to what to do.
uh,
And I could have gone another way.
uh,
And I'm here to tell the story now, which is what matters now for me.
absolutely. Well, it's clear that you're happy writing songs and
Yes.
well, and you've got passion. So, well, what about, do you have more passion now for that than acting? Or,
Well, I got to tell you, you
yeah.
know, um, I have more passion for acting in the things that I want to act in. I don't have to do parts now to pay bills. Not that I've done that in a long time, but you know, as I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Tom Cruise or I mean, look at Johnny Depp. I mean, that poor kid, he's been in how many of those giant Caribbean, like Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and that guy's struggling. You know, it's all relative. If there's a way to create a simple life and share something with others and enjoy this sort of sunset that we're, you know, I'm gray haired, I'm 56, and I'm not saying it's over, but it's like, how long do I want to be banging out movies in Hollywood? You know, I'd rather be a little bit older, strumming a guitar and telling y'all about it and sharing something with value, and maybe imparting some wisdom or some life experience on some youngsters that might need it. And um, then you know, running from aliens, trying to get paid. And I watch these gentlemen who become bitter and jaded and at one time had, you know, spectacular careers in Hollywood, and now, you know, they're reduced to being a father on some children's show on cable. And there's something that I respect about that, but I know when they're going home that they're probably blessed they have a job, but they're searching creatively. And music really gave me an outlet that I needed. You know, I uh writing my own songs has been um it's done a lot of things. It's led me to some historical experiences that I've written songs about that have made me appreciate where I come from and who I am on many levels. And it's given me this overwhelming sense of purpose and value that I took for granted as an actor because it came so easy for me as a child. Uh, you know, songwriting wasn't that's something I had to work hard for, and then to have somebody listen to something that I have written and recorded and say, "Hey, man, you know, I got you on my playlist, or I really I hear what you're saying, and I really appreciate it, and I like it." You know, that was never really something I intended when I started because in my mind it was going to take years and years and years to ever reach that level. So the fact that it happened in, a year's time, you know, for me personally, it's shocking. It's just shocking because I didn't intend for that to happen. But as I submerge into Nashville and into this business, I see that I have a significant place here and a role that will have great value to other artists as well. I'm not here to try to be the most popular singer. I want to write songs for people, and um, that's what I'm looking forward to. I can't wait, for that to
Yeah.
happen. Write something for somebody
Yeah.
that matters, that has weight. That would just blow my mind. So that's what is driving me right now.
Okay. So are you also working on new songs? You've got Rose
Oh,
Hill,
all the time. My gosh,
Ponygirl
like I
singing.
just I just recorded 2 songs last Monday. One of them's called Raised by Wolves, and the other one's called Hope I Ain't Dead, which is about a guy that wakes up with the most beautiful girl that he loves, and he wakes up and he thinks he's in heaven, but he hope he ain't dead. And it's a little love song,
Yeah.
and I really have found um, that I'm very excited to release the album because I feel the album runs deep. I don't feel our album has weak songs on it. I've got a song on there called "Hell of a Life" that reflects my own career. It talks about, it starts out uh, helped save an alien when I was just 13. Shot down a helicopter yelling Wolverines. Recited Robert Frost staring at the sun. Held my ground at the devil's den with an empty gun. And that was, of course, from Killer Angels when I played Tom Chamberlain, and we held Little Round Top with no ammunition. So people then are able to have a moment while I'm singing a song to them that sort of chronicles my career,
Brings back memories for them.
brings back some memories, and then we can
Also.
talk about that, and talk about Patrick Swayze. I spent 3 years with my buddy Swayze, even taught him how to rope and how to ride. You might have missed that one we did with Jamie Lee Curtis, but it had some lovely benefits on the side. So, it for me, people have seen those movies. They've seen Red Dawn. They've seen The Outsiders. Maybe you didn't see uh, Grandview USA, but a lot of people did, and it's fun to go through that. Played a killer on TV called The Reaper, and we talk about it. And people in my business that are performing, a lot of them have these, rules that you can't ask me about my career as an actor, and I don't want to talk about that. And I find that to be a missed opportunity for a lot of people, and they miss the opportunity for having a good time and a really great exchange with their audience members that would love to hear about that from them. And what you get back in return from that is a lot of love. So I found it to be an incredible tool and a big part of my show.
Well, yeah, and with Criminal Minds returning, people are talking about the Reaper even more, and you. So, you're coming back into that conversation. I don't know if you watch Criminal Minds, but it's
I
already
haven't, and
started.
I
Evolution.
love that there's references to the Reaper all the time on that show. I know that that's been a big part of the show over the years, and there's something that I just absolutely love about that.
Mhm.
And at the same time, um, I love hearing people say, "My God, how did Ponyboy turn into the Reaper?" And that's the great thing about acting, really, is that for me, I really embraced that chameleon aspect of not wanting to be the same in every role. Though I feel the most famous actors are those Clint Eastwood types that kind of play the same guy over and over. Um, if you can establish yourself like that, that's the way to go because it makes life a lot easier. Boy, it's tough when you want to become something different every single time, and you got to do that hard work to make that change. But that's what I found for me, when I became sort of the character actor, another quick story before we wrap this up. I did a movie called The Hitcher when I was 17 years old with an actor named Rutger Hauer. And Rutger was an amazing actor at the time, and he basically had the monopoly on all the villains throughout Hollywood. And he was the best bad guy ever, whether it was Blade Runner or Soldier of Orange or Nighthawk or whatever, however you saw him, and so many, 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 many more beautiful, amazing villains.
Absolutely.
And about 4 weeks into filming, he invited me into his trailer to have lunch, and we were all intimidated as hell. And he really isolated himself away from everybody else and never really joined anybody in terms of, a crew aspect or a cast aspect. It wasn't a free for all, let's all eat together and have a good time. It was a, every man for himself type of a feeling. But I think that was created intentionally because that was the type of film we were making. And one day he invited me into his trailer, and we sat there in stone silence for about 15 minutes as he was smoking a cigarette. And out of sheer terror, I mustered up a little bit of small talk. And I said, Mr. Rutger, everybody says you're just the best bad guy ever. What's your secret to playing bad guys? And he picks this, piece of tobacco out of his teeth, and he hisses in that Dutch accent, I don't play bad guys. And man, that put the fear of God into me. And I didn't know what he said, but I gathered up my tray and I exited that trailer quicker than you can imagine. And that rattled around my damn head for years and years and years. And I was finally cast, 20 some odd years later in the role of George Foyet in Criminal Minds. And I started thinking before I went into that audition, because I had to audition for it. And I started thinking about Rutger Hauer and my meeting with him and what made his character so special. And it finally hit me. He found a way to express his humanity by being a grounded, not psychopath, freaky guy, but being a very grounded, artistic human with feelings that was behaving as such a sociopath, which brought the fear of God into everybody. Because once we remove ourselves, creatively from a character, meaning I'm going to play a caricature of what I think a bad guy is in the past, whether I'm twirling my mustache or going, you'll never get me, and running through a hail of bullets, knowing that I'm going to live till page 90. So there's no way I'm going to be killed. That behavior and that sensibility just makes me immediately dislike whatever I'm watching. When you find something that you can really ground yourself into, and I was able to understand what Rutger meant when I embraced this role of George Foyet, partially because of the way it was written. I'm introduced as a victim of the Reaper,
Right.
which led to a very different approach to this character than if I were starting out stabbing somebody as the bad guy. I was playing a weak, scared, and fearful victim who had been stabbed 67 times by, and go figure that. How'd you like to stab yourself 67 times? Call the cops and say, I've been stabbed by somebody wearing a mask.
Yeah.
So I was hiding in plain sight in that show. But what it did to me psychologically is it allowed me to find the humanity in that character. And it immediately made me understand what Rutger Hauer has always done in his work. And when you're playing a bad guy that's a larger than life character doing evil things, if you can find a way to be grounded and bring out the humanity of that character and not disassociate from your surroundings and like you're invincible, there's a real profound effect that has on an audience. And people have come up to me and said, oh my God, you're so crazy and insane in Criminal Minds. And I said, well, you better watch that again, because he's pretty grounded. he's pretty not crazy.
The more
You know,
southern type.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
pretty together.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him scary.
Mhm.
And that's what Rutger was. You know, Rutger wasn't running around screaming, you know, covered in blood with a chainsaw. He was, you know, might squirt a little squirt some sweat on his face and give you a smile and a twinkle before he carved your eyeball out. And there was something holy crap scary about all of that. But it took me 20 some odd years to really understand what he meant. And it took that long for somebody to give me a role like that.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you say, we can wrap this up, and I'll
I
look
sure appreciate talking to you again.
absolutely, you too, and I'll look forward to, talking to you perhaps when the album comes out, and we can
Please do. I hope you check it out. It's going to come out early February, and there's going to be stuff on there you'll like.
absolutely, we can promote that.
God bless. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, Tommy. Enjoyed the chat.
Thank you, love.
Take care. Bye-bye.